In this video, we will have a look how we can create a pause button and we can pause our game. And if we click on this resume button, our time just gonna get back to normal as you can see. But whenever we goes to click on this pause button, the game get paused and this pause panel just get active. But if we click on this resume, our game getting basically game time just getting back to normal. So before I jump into the coding part or in this basically cover the topic, I want to thanks special Patreon supporter Leonardo, Real Terraphobia, and Josh Carlos. Thank you so much. It helped me a lot. And if you want to do that, guys, you can too. I have a link in the description of my Patreon page. You can go and you can just take membership, and after taking membership you're gonna unlock many benefits. And select this canvas, and if to focus on that canvas, as you can see this is our canvas and we need to change some settings. To do so, let's go to inspector, scroll down, you can see canvas scaler, so just go there and select UI scale mode to constant pixel size to scale with screen size. So choose that and put in the X something like 1920, in the Y 1080 if you just making a landscape game, and if you making a portrait game then it will just put in the X something like 1080 and in the Y 1920. So I'm gonna put in the X 1920 and in the Y 1080 because this is a landscape mode game. And I'm gonna drag this canvas top of my hierarchy so I can see all the time. And let's select this canvas, right click on this canvas, then go to you can create an empty game object. So I'm gonna create the panel first. To do so, let's go to UI and select this panel right over here as you can see. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna make or gonna resize this panel on something like, so let's leave it like this, or you can just make it resize and hold down. Also you're gonna resize from center as you can see, and I'm gonna replace this image with some a sprite, UI sprite. Firstly, what I'm gonna do, make it totally white, or not gonna make it transparent, or to just not make to just get rid of transparent. What we have to do, we need to go over to inspector, then go to image section and click on this color fit, and in the in the bottom you can see you can just make it totally transparent, but I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna drag it all the way up into the right side, basically 255. Now it's not transparent and I want to change this. To change this with any sprite, I'm gonna go to project tab, then assets sprite. I will have a link in the description, you can go and check there. So I'm gonna go right over here, UI2, and I'm gonna select any of them, something like this screen one seems pretty good, so I'm gonna select that and drag it into the source image field. As you can see, indeed it's just change it right away, and you can resize this by holding down alt as you can see. So this will be our pause panel or pause UI, you can say. I'm gonna make it something like this, and let's call it to panel to something like something else. So let's right click or rename that, or what else you can do, select the game object, go over to inspector, and over here you can rename that. So I'm gonna call this something like pause menu. And let's create two button, one button to resume our game, basically to play or to run our game to normal time, basically resume our game, you can say. And the second thing will the second button will be the menu button. If we click on that button, we're gonna go over to menu scene. So let's create those buttons. To do so, let's right click on this pause menu, then go to UI, and in the bottom says legacy, then choose this button, and we're gonna call this button to something pause button. Sorry, not pause button, basically this will be resume button, resume button. And let's scale it a little bit up, something like, let's hold down also, it's gonna scale from center as you can see. And I want to change the source image of this. To change, we know I'm gonna go over to those sprites right there. So I'm gonna choose some buttons right over here, something this yellow. Let's select that and drag it into the source image field, sorry, source image field. As you can see, let's hold down Alt, so it's gonna resize from center, as you can see. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go over to inspector, then click or go over to rake transform, click right over here and hold down Alt, and you can choose any anchor. So I'm gonna choose this top one, so let's select that and I'm gonna drag it down. And now if I try to scale down my screen size, as you can see the panel and this button getting resized according to our screen size. And what we want to do, the text inside this button seems pretty small, so let's make it bigger. So let's click right over here, let's select this text and I'm gonna make, let's go to inspector, then text component, and let's make this font size a little bit up, something like 100 I guess. And then I'm gonna choose this font style to bold, and you can choose any I'm gonna drag a font right over here. I'm gonna give a link of all of these fonts as well in the description, you can go and check that out. So I'm gonna select another font, something like Roboto, and this seems pretty quite good. I'm gonna choose this one. This one seems pretty good. This one, okay, so that's pretty fine. I'm gonna select font style to normal, and instead of saying button, I'm gonna say something like resume the game. And you can change the color of this font by going or scroll down and go to color fill, and you can choose any color you like. So I'm gonna go with something like this, black, dark black, and let's call it you can capitalize these letters, but I'm gonna go with this and this is fine. And let's duplicate this button, so let's select this button and Control D to duplicate, and let's move it down something somewhere around here. And I'm gonna call this one to something like menu. So let's call this button to menu button. So let's go over here, let's call this menu button, sorry, menu button, and let's change the text inside of that. So I'm gonna call this something like menu. So we have now this menu button, so let's select this menu button, and I'm gonna, let's go to rect transform, let's click right over here, hold down all, and I'm gonna choose this one for bottom one. So I'm gonna move it in the Y something around 400 I guess. And let's select the top button and let's do it something minus 400. And I guess it's pretty close. Let's do minus 300 and minus 350. Let's do minus 350. And for this bottom one, let's do 350. And I guess this seems pretty cool. And just want to change the color of this text something to something else, something like white, or this seems pretty good. Now you can play around with this and you're gonna get hang of it. And let's choose to bold, and let's choose another font for this, something this roboto and this one seems pretty good. Okay, fine, that's fine. I hope you get the idea. And what we want to do, let's make this pause menu basically a prefab. So let's select this pause menu and drag it into that assets folder or into that prefab folder. You create a prefab folder and drag it right there, or you can just drag it right over here in assets. Now it's turned into a prefab. So what we want, by default we want this to be unchecked, basically false. This one shouldn't be active when the game start. But when we click on anywhere, something like if we just create a pause button and if we just click right there, then we just want this panel to be active. So let's, by default we're gonna uncheck, basically we're gonna set this one to deactivate or want to set active to false. To do so, select the pause menu and let's go over to inspector and uncheck right over here, and we're gonna check it once the game basically once we click on this pause button. So uncheck, and let's create a pause button. To do so, let's select the canvas, right click, then go to UI and legacy in the bottom and choose this button, and let's call this button to something like pause button. pause button, pause button. And let's scale this up a little bit, something like this. And what we're gonna do, let's change the color of this source image. To do so, let's go to sprites UI, and let's select this yellow one. I'm gonna select this one. Let's select that and drag it into this source image field, as you can see. And let's increase the text inside of this basically inside let's increase the size of the text inside of this button. So let's select this text and let's increase around 100. And let's call I'm gonna choose robotable, something like this. And let's call this button to something like pause. So instead of button, let's call this one, sorry, pause. So this is our pause button, and we're gonna choose normal, sorry, bold. And what we want, let's go select this pause button, go over to inspector and click right over here in rect transform, hold down all. And I'm gonna select this top left corner for this now, and I'm gonna drag it somewhere around here, as you can see. So once we click on this pause button, what we want to activate that pause panel. And then we want to stop, basically we want to stop our game to do anything like that. Basically we're gonna set the time to 0. To do so, let's create a script for that. So go over to project tab, then assets, right click, create, and create a folder first. And then go over to that folder, basically this for script folder, something like that. Then right click on that folder, then create a C# script and name it to something like pause manager. I already have created right over here, and you can attach this script to any game object of hierarchy, but I'm gonna create a separate game object for this pause manager script. To do so, let's go to hierarchy, right click or hit this plus icon. Let's create an empty game object, and let's call this game object to something like pause manager, pause manager. And let's go over to inspector, then transform, right click and reset the transform. And I'm gonna drag this game object in top of my hierarchy. And let's select this script, a pause manager script, and drag it over to add component section, basically attach that. Or you can attach this script to any game object of your hierarchy, it's totally up to you. And after doing that, let's double click on this basically over onto that script to open it up in Visual Studio. So what we want, uh, I'm gonna remove this start and update function. We don't need it. Instead we're gonna make two function. So first, if I just set this, if I go to canvas, then pause menu and set this one to be active. So once we click on this resume button, then we want to basically load the cable, or want to resume our game one more time, or to play the game. Basically we just want our time to get back normal. And once we click on this pause button, we're gonna set the time to 0, and basically those kind of things. So basically we need a reference of this panel as well, and then we can just do these things. So by default we're gonna set this to unactive. And let's go to script now, and let's create a two function, one for our pause button and one for our resume button, and another for the third function we're gonna make for menu button. So let's make sure you just making that public, because we want to call this function through click button. Basically if we select this pause button, basically this button, and go over to inspector in the top right, or over here, and if we scroll down, we're gonna call this right over here. So that's why we need to make those function public. So this will be, so for function we have to type void, and let's call this something like pause button, or you can say pause game, and make first bracket and some curly brackets. And now let's copy this function by Control C, and let's paste it down. You can paste it anywhere in your script, so I'm gonna paste it down. So Control V for pasting it, and I'm gonna paste one more time for menu button. And let's rename this function. So this for will be resume button, so let's uh, call resume button. And this one will be menu button, menu button. and menu button. So what we want, so once we click on this pause, basically this pause button, then we want to call this pause button function. And what we want to do inside this pause button function, basically we gonna set the time to basically zero, basically zero. To do so, we have to go over to this time dot time scale, and we can set equal to 0f, so the time just gonna be stop, basically the game just gonna stop right away. But if we just put right over here time dot time scale to 1, basically right over here means the normal time the game is running. And if you just put right over here something like 1 by 2 or zero point 0.5, so the time gonna be twice slower. And if you just put 2f, basically means the time would be twice faster. So what we want to set the time to 0. Once we click on that pause button, then we should stop that game to be run, basically to be run. And once we click on that resume button, then we want to set back time at dot time scale to one more time. Basically we just wanna get back time to as normal. To do so, let's go to time dot time scale, and we're gonna set equal to 1f basically means the normal time. And over here we, so once we so we're gonna call this pause button function. And what pause button function is doing, it's just setting time to 0f. So basically game will just gonna pause right away, or the game will stop running. And once we call basically click on this resume button, then we're gonna call this function. And what resume button function is doing, it's just setting back our time to normal, so our game just gonna run as normal. So once we click on that button, and for menu I don't have any menu, something like that I don't want. So for now, let's print out a message in the console. Once we click on that button, menu button, then we're gonna call this function. And this function over here, we just want to print out a message. So let's type debug.log, and we can say something like in quotation menu, sorry, menu, and close that up with semicolon, control S to save your code. And now let's go to Unity, and we should able to see that so once we click on that pause button, basically we also need to set back this one, basically the pause panel, we need to set that back. Basically we need to set active or activate, we need to activate our pause panel, so we can see the resume button and the menu button. So we just forgot to do it. Basically if we go to Unity and select this pause menu, so we want to set this one to be active or inactive. So basically we need a reference of this pause menu game object or this panel, then we can set this one to be active. So let's go to script one more time, and let's go over here, and I'm gonna remove these two namespaces in the top, we don't need it. And let's go right over here, let's create a public game object field that is a game object. Basically that panel is also an game object, so we have to type game object, and we can call this something like pause panel. Now let's close that up with semicolon. And once we click on that pause button, we want that pause panel to be active, so we're gonna go over to pause panel, then dot, we're gonna use this set active function. So in brackets you can pass a true or false value. True basically means if we just check this one, this pause menu panel, check basically means true, and uncheck basically means false. Basically we want to set that to be active, so we're gonna, that's why we're gonna passed over here true. And make sure close that up with semicolon, control S to save your code. And let's go to Unity, and of course you need the drag in that this pause menu panel right there into that pause panel game object field. So we're gonna have the reference, then we can set that up. So I hope you get the idea. So if I select this pause manager game object, as you can see pause menu, and it says none game object. So what we have to do, we're going to select this pause menu or this pause menu panel, you can say, select that and drag it right there. And what we have to do, if we select this, click on this canvas and select this pause button, so we need to call that, once we click on this pause button, we need to call that pause button function. And we know what pause button function is doing. It's basically setting this pause menu panel firstly active, and then we can just do those things. So if I select this pause button, let's scroll down in inspector and hit this plus icon in the bottom, and we need to drag the game object in which game object the script is setting on. So in our case, this pause manager. So let's select that game object and drag it right there, and it says no function. So let's click on that, and then let's go to pause manager script or class. In there we created that pause button, so let's select that. And now if we click on this play button and try to click on this pause button, then that function just basically we just moving over to this pause manager class and then calling this function, and we do know what this function is doing. It's just setting our time to normal. So if I now just click on this, as you can see, pause panel just get active, as well as if we try to move, we cannot move. The game gets basically the game get pause. But once we click on this resume button and this menu, it does nothing currently. Why? Because we need to hook this button with those functions. So let's get out of play mode, and what we're gonna do, we're gonna select this pause menu, and let's click right over here. Let's select the resume button first, and let's go to inspector, scroll down, let's click on this plus icon. So we need to drag the game object in which game object the script is sitting on. So let's drag this pause manager, let's select the function, let's go to pause manager class, and let's select for this resume button, we're gonna choose resume button function. And for this menu button, we're gonna choose, let's drag this pause manager, and let's pause manager, and for this menu button, let's select this menu. And now if we click on this play button in the top, we're gonna able to see that once we click on that resume button, our game just gonna get to back normal. Basically the time will get back to normal. So let's click on this pause. As you can see, that gets active. And if we click on this menu in the console, the message just getting pop up, and you can do whatever you want to do. Once you click on this menu, you can go back to menu scene or menu. And if I click on this resume button, as you can see, but the problem is that the game time just gets back to normal. The problem is that this panel is still active. So what we have to do, we need to set this one more time, this pause menu panel to be inactive, basically unchecked. So we have a reference of this, we know. So let's go to script one more time. And what we're gonna do, so after basically we setting back time to normal, we're gonna go to that pause panel, and let's use this set active function. So we have to pass the value, so we're gonna pass false, basically means unchecked. So it's gonna uncheck, or the pause panel just gonna be deactivate right away once the time gets normal, or once we click on that resume button. And let's close that off with semicolon, control S to save your code. And now let's move to Unity, and you're gonna able to see that right away. So just wait for to compile, and once we click on that basically resume button, you're gonna able to see that. So let's click on this play button in the top, and let's try to click on this pause button. That pause panel just gonna be active right away. So let's click on this. As you can see, it's get active. And now if I just try to click on resume, as you can see, it's get deactivate, and the time gets back to normal, as you can see. So I hope you get the idea of this, how you can just set this. And if I just click one more time, we getting, and if we click on resume, and it's getting back basically the time getting back to normal. So I hope you get the idea of this, how you can just make this pause panel, or how you can make your game pause. And lastly, thanks for watching this video.